everybody, and welcome to Flock Talk. Today we're going to be talking about the idea of bad behaviors, so that way you are able to understand why these sorts of things occur and what we need to consider when we think about resolving a problem behavior. Now, when I say something like bad behaviors or problem behaviors, you're probably thinking of things like height aggression, being territorial over a cage, biting and lunging, or screaming. And you would be right to say that those things are bad behaviors in the sense that they are behaviors that we don't tend to want in our homes. But they are not bad in the sense that the behavior itself is a problem for the bird. The behavior serves a purpose, and there's a reason why that behavior exists. Understanding that this problem behavior has a purpose and a function for the bird is critical in understanding how you actually want to go about resolving it, if resolving it is even something you want to do. If anybody ever is online or in person and says that your bird should not be doing X, Y, Z because they don't think it's good, you don't have to stop your bird from doing that thing unless it's actually detrimental to your bird's health. When someone says that they don't like a bird doing a certain behavior, this could be things like sitting on top of your head, shoulder rushing when they run straight up your arm towards your shoulder, or even taking food and snacks from you when you're eating, as long as those things are non-toxic, those behaviors aren't necessarily a problem. They're not going to do anything to your bird. They're not going to make your bird dominate you. They aren't bad behaviors. They're just behaviors that some people don't personally like inside their own households. And if you're someone who doesn't want your bird sitting on top of your head for whatever myriad of reasons, that's totally fine. You can teach your bird not to sit on top of your head, but that doesn't mean it's a cold-cut rule that has to be followed by every single person who has a bird. A bird sitting on your head is not going to do anything. If you don't mind your bird sitting up there, it's not a problem. Let them do it. It's fun, it's comfortable, it's safe. It's a reason why a lot of birds go up there. It's probably nice and toasty warm too, and there's lots of hair for them to preen or a hat for them to sit on. It can be a really fun space for them. That's why birds like to be up there, not because it's necessarily to dominate you or to cause some other problems within your house. So there's a ton of little mundane rules that you will hear people say regarding not letting your bird be above your eye level, to always have their cage lower than where you are, and little nuances like that, which really don't matter. Those are all behaviors that people have chosen to follow based on outdated information or just out of personal preference. And it's your choice whether or not you want your bird to exhibit those behaviors, and you can do as you please with that. Now, when it comes to more troubling behaviors like aggression and cage guarding or food resource guarding, they're also not problem behaviors, and I'm going to go into detail about that. We consider them problem behaviors because they're an inconvenience to us, right? If my bird is guarding their cage, it makes it very difficult for me to do the daily maintenance and cleaning. But that doesn't mean the behavior itself is a problem. The behavior isn't wrong, the behavior isn't bad. That's just a label that we choose to put on it to describe for ourselves. But for the bird, guarding that cage is a very good behavior. It keeps the people they find scary out of it, keeps other birds out of it, it keeps their belongings safe. Protecting their cage is not a bad behavior. It's just something that makes it difficult for us to be able to clean it or interact with the cage, or is maybe even painful if we end up getting bit because of it. When we frame a behavior as just being good or bad, it makes it very easy for us to misinterpret how to handle it. If we see a bird being aggressive on its cage and go, oh, that's bad, it makes it a lot easier for us to fall back into using punishment and more coercive techniques to be able to get a bird to stop doing something because we think it's bad and it's wrong. But when we reshape this to realize that this behavior itself isn't bad, it's just an inconvenience to me, it allows us to be able to approach the behavior properly. And now, instead of going, that behavior is bad, it needs to stop, we can go, this behavior exists for a reason, and it's serving the bird a function. Is there something I can do to allow the bird to be able to get that exact same function, the same reinforcement they are looking for, but not have that specific behavior end up occurring, so that way I am able to get into that cage and clean it, or do whatever else to be able to make this functional and not have myself get hurt. Every single time that you have a behavior that is a problem, is something that is an issue for you, there is always an answer to that. It's a lot harder to find an answer when you just say that behavior is bad, it needs to stop, right? That doesn't give you any information. It doesn't tell you how to solve it. It doesn't tell you why it exists. You're just saying that guarding the cage is bad, so therefore it must be punished, it must end, it can't continue. When you shape it as this behavior is serving the bird a function, it is keeping me out and keeping their space safe, what else can I do to help them feel safe and feel like I'm not going to take their resources away, but still allow me to access the cage and clean it and not have this behavior exist where I'm now getting harmed. When we shape it like that, we are much more likely to be able to find an answer. They're being very, very cute over there. Every single behavior that your bird does exists for a reason. A behavior wouldn't exist if it didn't provide some level of reinforcement and form some form of function for the bird, whether that be foraging to be able to access food, guarding their cage to protect their resources, lunging and biting in order to get someone to go away. The behavior always exists in order to serve a function. There is a goal that that bird is trying to achieve by exhibiting that behavior in the first place. That behavior isn't bad. That behavior is serving a purpose, and we need to figure out what that purpose is so we can help them feel safe, or we can help them access that function without having to resort to those methods that we find inconvenient. It's not inconvenient for your bird. It's not bad for your bird to be aggressive. It's bad for you. When you have a bird that's just screaming really, really loud in the middle of the day for no reason, it serves a purpose. They could be exerting energy and being really excited. They could be expressing themselves. They could be screaming for attention. There's a lot of reasons that that behavior exists. There's a lot of elements that that behavior can serve. There's a lot of purposes to it that the bird could be experiencing. And if you can figure out why that behavior is happening and the purpose that it serves for the bird, no matter how bad it seems to us, there can be something that you can provide to them so they can achieve their goal, whether that be exerting energy or getting your attention, and give them a healthier way to access it. So if they're screaming at, say, 8 a.m. and your neighbors are giving you a noise complaint, you can teach them to scream at 10 or 11 when it's no longer going to be an issue. They can still outlet that behavior and have fun, but they're not doing it first thing in the morning and waking everybody up. If the bird's screaming for attention, you can teach them more appropriate ways to get your attention. You can teach them to ring a bell. You can give them a different vocalization to make. There are things you can do to still get them that access to your attention without needing that specific behavior. When we are looking at aggression towards people, it could be that your bird is overstimulated and struggling to regulate their emotions. It could be that they are hormonal and they are struggling to regulate that. It could be that they are scared and feeling threatened, and so they're biting to make someone go away. That one behavior can serve so many different functions, and it's important to realize what that function is so you can resolve it properly. You cannot treat every single case of biting exactly the same with blanket statements, because the root cause for that biting and the function that it serves is going to be different in every scenario. And that is going to be what ultimately helps the behavior get resolved. If you just treat it as the bird is biting, it's bad, the biting needs to stop, you're not going to get very far because you don't understand why it's happening and what's reinforcing the bird to continue to do it. A behavior that is not being reinforced will not repeat. If your bird is biting over and over and over and over again, it's achieving a function. They're getting the goal that they wanted, and it's reinforcing itself to cause them to keep biting. If you break it down and figure out what is happening prior to the bite, what is happening when the bite has happened, how you are responding to the bite, and what happens next time, you are able to get a lot more information as to why that behavior has occurred. You can see that maybe you wore a blue hat that day and then your bird bit, and then the next day you didn't wear a hat and the bird didn't bite you. Then you might see that your bird doesn't like that blue hat. Obviously, all problems are not that simple, but it gives you an idea of how breaking down the situation can tell you that a tiny little detail that you didn't see the first time is the function for the behavior. They bit you because they were scared. You backed away because you got bit and it didn't feel good. Your bird got that space that they wanted. They got that distance. They were able to release some of that fear, and the bite served its purpose. You know that the bird now bit out of fear, and that's what's powering the behavior. You can now work on building comfort with the thing that scared them, building confidence and trust to be able to negate their need to bite in the future. In that scenario, if your bird is scared and that's the reason for their biting, if you go ahead and apply a punishment to that situation, you're only showing them that their reason for being scared was valid. Because now you've added something scary and threatening and intimidating into this already scary situation. That biting might disappear for now, you might even suppress it for a little while, but it's not resolving the cause, and it will continue to come back, and your punishments will need to get more and more severe in order to make the behavior to stop. This is a well-studied thing when it comes to the fallout of punishments, that they need to get more severe to keep working until you're at a point where you can't make them any stronger. And at that point, the entire system kind of falls apart. You are at your highest max punishment. There's nowhere else for you to go. because you haven't resolved the root cause of the problem. You haven't actually taught them how to find a different solution. You've just given them a lot of fear surrounding that one problem, and you have suppressed the behavior, not resolved it. On the flip side of this, if you don't view a behavior as just being outright bad and needing to stop and needing punishment in order to end it, and you realize that it has a function, you figure out what that function is, and you work to resolve that problem at the root and the reason why that behavior is occurring, and you teach the bird a different way to behave, you teach them a different behavioral repertoire so they can still access the function they wanted before, or even resolve the fear or discomfort or whatever was triggering the behavior, you will now have set your bird up with a whole behavioral repertoire that they now know how to use in the correct formats and not need to rely on those old behaviors anymore. They become unnecessary. That biting, that lunging, the territory guarding, anything becomes unnecessary because they have a new set of tricks that they can use in order to access the stuff they were needing before. That resolves the root cause of the behavioral problem and gives them something else to use that you find less problematic, but still gives the bird what they were looking for. In those scenarios, that's pretty much all there is to it. You don't need to continue to punish or threaten or be scared of the behavior because you've given them a different way to communicate that need, and you are respecting that need and giving them an outlet for it. And this new outlet is now something that's not an inconvenience to you or not threatening or harming you, and still serves the function that the bird needed in the first place. This behavior is now virtually indestructible because it becomes self-reinforcing to the bird as they are still getting the main function they wanted, just out of a different behavior. And this isn't to say that solving behavior problems is easy, because it certainly is not. But when you take the time to acknowledge the behavior and why it is existing in the first place, and acknowledge that it's not bad, it doesn't need that nasty label, it's just a behavior that serves a purpose, it gives you a much better mindset to be able to break the situation down, figure out the function of that behavior, and start working on finding a solution. This shift of mindset from just thinking that a behavior is outright bad and needing to stop sets you up for failure, quite honestly, because you're not thinking it as something that has a solution or something that can really be solved. You're looking at it as a roadblock that is in your way that you need to quickly end. When you break it down further and start to establish what the function of that behavior is, it gives you a reason behind that behavior's existence. And you are able to frame it in a new mindset now, where you know why that behavior exists, you know the purpose that it serves, and you can start to look for different ways to help your bird find that purpose in a different behavior and get that need that they are requiring, or resolve the root of the fear or discomfort or whatever is causing the behavior to start. All of this to say, there is no such thing as an aggressive bird. There are only birds that are exhibiting aggressive behaviors. And there is no such thing as a problem behavior or bad behaviors. There are just behaviors that we don't personally want in our households. And those behaviors might be inconveniencing or a problem to us, but they aren't a problem to your bird, and the behavior itself isn't good or bad. It just serves a purpose. So that'll do it for me today. I hope that this all made sense and will give you some things to consider and hopefully give you a bit of a better mindset to think from when you are facing problems with your own bird in your own home. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye. Yeah. He's a pretty bird. He's a pretty bird. Yeah. Oh my goodness. Yeah.